Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com mailbag podcast brought to you by our good friends at Blue Water Climate Control. Moving this to Thursday, going to give you a little extra podcast stuff on Friday with our Nashville hour that Austin and I do. So we got that on Friday. We're going to move the mailbag permanently to Thursday, and we'll keep our podcast on Tuesday as well. But Rob and Austin, as we get started here, just your initial thoughts on the Big Ten being back and the thoughts of maybe the Pac-12 returning to football as well.
I'm not surprised about the Big Ten. I mean, we talked a little bit about it before, the vote, that just when you've got programs like Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, I mean, that's three schools right there whose stadiums seat over 100,000. I mean, you don't build those things if you don't have an enormous donor base with a lot of passion and some heavy hitters in government that are among those boosters. So to me, I'm not surprised that the Big Ten went that way. And I think the Pac-12, ends up looking foolish sitting out there on an island if they're the only, Power 5 conference that's not playing.
Well, which is why they've come out tonight and all of a sudden, within a matter of 24 hours, they went from no chance to now they can be ready to go in 6 weeks and start right around the same time the Big Ten starting. And, I think it's hilarious that they tried to blame it on the California laws, and then the governor of California came out and said, wait, there's no laws that's preventing them from playing. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, what do we do? Oh, we better play. I mean, where's the old sports center and they use the Vince Lombardi, what the hell's going on around here? Whatever clip. I mean, it's one of those situations where you just scratch your head at the decision makers, why is it taking so long? It doesn't not seem like they're just set up to fail. It does to me.
Yes, they're set up to have a bunch of walk-ons playing by week 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, their protocols. It'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. It'll be, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the SEC. I mean, Missouri's talking about being down some 10 to 15 players in their opener already with guys they have in quarantine. So we know people are going to be without players. I think the big question with the Big Ten is, how strong do they want to be and how strong are they in really playing? And that was, Austin, I think you and I had this conversation, one of many that we had throughout all this stuff when North Carolina went virtual with their students. And I wondered if they were going to hold true to playing football, how committed they were and how committed the ACC would ultimately end up being. But it's proven that they are committed to playing, that they are going to do everything they can to play. Well, does the Big Ten share in that same commitment? I think is a question that we all have to ask. I think the other thing that you wonder about right now too, a little bit, is does the SEC come out with some kind of parameters on when a game's not played? I know the Big 12 came out with their set of numbers, X number at this position, that position. I think they walked back on some of that a little bit. But Rob, if you're the SEC from a safety standpoint, do you have to have some number in there that says if you don't have X percentage at each position or this, that, or the other, that you don't play? I mean, how do you – is that reasonable?
I think you have to – I mean, I don't know. Have to is probably the wrong way to put it. I think it makes sense to put, something in place there. I mean, I'd be okay like with the NFL with a 53-man roster. Maybe that's, your cutoff point. And, you'd be at a tremendous disadvantage if you were down 32 guys. But still, I mean, the NFL plays that way every Sunday. But, obviously they built the roster to that specification. So that's apples and oranges a little bit. But I think having a number makes sense, have a baseline.
Yeah, I mean, I just wonder what that looks like because, I mean, you can't put – I don't know how you put just a hard number because it's by position. What if you're down 7 guys on the offensive line, which Austin at one point Tennessee was down, I think, about that many on the offensive line, which would have made it really hard for Tennessee to play a game when that was the case. So I don't know how you come up with that number, but I think from a safety standpoint, the SEC's got to come up with something, right?
Well, one would think, but I guess, you don't technically have to. I mean, it honestly, doesn't it feel like that Jeremy's just, it's going to almost be like high school ball. Like what Carl Pickens and those kind of players that played 2As back in the heyday, they would have loved to have played during this stretch, in the next, 3 months. I mean, it feels like they're going to have guys that just can, kind of interchange that have bounced around anyway. But one would think that you would have to set some type of parameters. But hey, Brent, they play in 10 days. I mean, like,
True. If you haven't done it now, what's the point?
Yeah, correct. I mean,
fair.
I don't know.
Yeah, fair. All right, last question before we get into the mailbag questions. Initial thought on the NCAA saying it's staying dead in recruiting until January 1.
My initial thought is you've got to do something about the February signing date.
What about you mean the December date or the February
No, I mean
date?
the February. I think December, because, I mean, if the kid already knows where he wants to go, he's been committed for a long time, I think that kid can go ahead and sign. But if you're undecided,
February, like make it to April now.
I think they should push it back to where the basketball period is, which begins.
I don't
late
disagree
April,
with this.
Runs for and it's not just a day. I mean, the basketball period lasts like 2-3 weeks. But I think you've got to move the February date back, just
so it gives them a chance to visit. Because you're
yes.
I mean, if you open it up January 1, you'll have 3 weekends in there. I mean, it's not. We're not far removed. We're not that many years removed from guys taking 5 visits in January.
Yes, but we also are coming off a summer where nobody went to a camp, a spring practice. Nobody was at spring practice taking unofficial visits at spring practice. I mean, nobody was taking unofficial visits in the fall. I don't think you can do it in February.
And you're also dealing with a smaller number of people that's going to sign in February. You're not going to have as many people that you're recruiting in the month of January as you would if people sign in December, right?
I think so. I think Tennessee. I think there's a real chance that Tennessee could sign all their 25 in December. I mean, like, I guess they probably won't. They might leave a spot or two, but I bet you they sign at least 23 early. And I think kids will want to sign early because they're going to want to lock their spots in. Because, I mean, like, who knows? I mean, it's January 1st now, but who knows what happens when we get it.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets pushed back further than that, they obviously have to move it. That'll be an interesting topic on what the NCAA will do with the February signing date. Does that change? And maybe they even wait and see how many kids sign in December and go from there. I don't know. But, I mean, basketball-wise, Rob, that means Tennessee's going to sign at least one that's never been on campus before in November?
Yeah, right. I mean, and again, that could change, but I talked to somebody about that just this week, who knows more about it than I do, and they anticipated that for now the November spot was going to remain in place, and and to me that makes sense. I mean, again, if a kid knows what he wants to do, go ahead and do it, and if you don't, you've got the option to wait all the way until May.
Yeah, all the way up until then. So that's something to keep an eye on how the calendar changes, if the calendar does change, how it changes, because obviously it's going to change some. Coaches can't get on the road recruiting this fall to go into in-home visits in December. You can't make an official visit before signing day if you're going to sign in December. A very different time on the recruiting front for sure. All right, let's jump to some questions here as we dive into the mailbag. Assuming JG is the starter all year, but he doesn't make a big enough jump to get drafted, is he interested in coming back? Would the staff be interested in having him back? I don't want to speak for Jared. I said this on the podcast last week in regards to guys getting extra eligibility. I don't think it's a given that all those guys would come back for another year because they've graduated school. Maybe they're just tired of playing. You know what I mean? Maybe it's time to move on in life with something else. So I don't know that everybody comes clamoring back. I have no idea what JG would want to do at that point in time, none whatsoever. I don't think any of us does. I just know that when guys get to be 23 years old, sometimes they're ready to move on. They're engaged, they're ready to move on in their life in some way. So I'm going to be interested to see how many those seniors, not just at Tennessee, but around the country, are really interested in using an extra year of eligibility, as well as how many schools offer that extra year of eligibility when it's all said and done.
How about Brandon Kennedy? Imagine him being the first 7th-year senior in SEC history.
It would be, that's for sure. All right, let's go to UT Sportsman 16. Does Henry T emerge as one of the better linebackers in the country this year? How good can Key Lawrence be? Does Crouch get any short yardage carries if Hodge isn't healthy? Go ahead.
I'm gonna start with the last one first. I'm not sure it would be Hodge anyway. at this point, he's kind of got a calf thing, and they like what they've seen out of D. Beckwith through 3 practices.
Are you jumping on the Beckwith train, AP?
I'm jumping on the train that says he gets carries this season.
Really?
I don't know if he gets against South Carolina, but I bet you he gets carries this season.
So you're saying this is a true running back. It's not some H-back hybrid deal going on back there. You're saying he's going to line up behind the quarterback or beside the quarterback in the gun and have a running play.
Yes. Built similar to Derrick Henry. He's not Derrick Henry. He's not Derrick Henry. I'm going to preface that, but he's built similarly. And so I think that in short yard situations, they could lean on him. I think a lot of it depends on, how Crouch is playing on defense too. If he's proven to be really important, it's not worth it. Just like, honestly, there's no way I would put Ty Chandler or Eric Gray on special teams. Now, they may do it. I just wouldn't because they are so thin at the position we're just talking about.
Yes, for sure.
The other question.
Keyshawn Lawrence, how good is he going to be?
In time, I think he's going to be really, really good. Tennessee's playing him all over the secondary. They played him at corner. They played him at nickel. They played him at safety. Here lately, he's been getting some work at corner just for depth standpoint. But he's long. He runs well, and they've got high hopes for him.
And I think a smart kid too. Which is why I think they can move him around to so many different positions and you wouldn't do that with a lot of freshmen. And
I think Henry T is already one of the better linebackers in the country. Coming out of a freshman year, I think he was that good as a freshman. So
best here since Gerard Mayo, I think, pretty safe to say.
I think he's in a lot of people's conversations around the country. He is a known football player around the country. All right, let's go to Vols 68. What player or players that you expected to be really good or even break out this season can't because they've missed so much time? He also wants to know what freshman flew under the radar that you think will end up getting steady playing time. So 2 questions there from Vol 68. Let's answer this way. What guy has missed out the most on not being on the field, not being on the practice field?
I think K-Ron's hurt by that.
Wanye?
I think Wanye's been hurt by that. Defensively, I think the fact that Darrell Middleton and Aubrey Solomon have not played that much during fall camp as far as physical play, I think that will hurt them early on.
And I think a couple of those young receivers have been hurt too. The Holidays and the Callaways who have missed some time as well. All right, give me your freshman flowing under the radar you think is going to end up getting playing time.
Tyler Barron.
Can get to the quarterback. He can get on the field, right, AP?
Correct. And Tyler was walking in the door, Brent, way more physically gifted than a lot of other players. He's a big kid.
Yeah. Further along physically than Morven Joseph is from a size standpoint. And a physical.
Yeah, Morven's ripped. But Tyler's naturally big.
Yeah.
So when you put him in the weight room, he looks good as well.
All right, Dagley07 wants to know, and he goes back to clarify this down the post, so I'll go ahead and clarify it for him here. Anyone other than Pope that will not be available against South Carolina at this point for non-COVID related things? In other words, T. Hodge calf, some of the other things guys are dealing with. Feels like this team's getting healthier. I don't know what the injury report's going to look like this time next week. But from those guys who missed some time with tender hamstrings and
I think Riley Locklear is banged up enough to where he might not be able to go against South Carolina.
Okay, so Locklear could be one there. But
yeah. Most
of Jeremy's soft tissue injuries appear to be close to being back on the field or back out on the field. DC Vols 25. How's Brandon Johnson and John Mincy done this fall? I've said this about Brandon Johnson. I think he's motivated. I think he's ready to have a big year. I think the biggest challenge for him is, does he play physical enough at the line of scrimmage against press coverage? Does he get off press coverage? Is he physical enough running slants? I know he led the team in receiving a couple of years ago. I think that's going to be his biggest challenge is, can he play physical enough? As for John Mincy, look, Rob, that's a defensive line and hadn't drawn any praise from the head coach about anybody. So I would say John Mincy probably hasn't had a great fall camp, right?
He talked up Garland and he talked up Jaquan Blakely.
Yeah,
and those are the only two. And I think it was I think it was kind of telling that those are the two guys he singled out. I mean, two guys who who play but aren't, probably part of the camp wouldn't consider them in the top 5. I wouldn't think.
He did give Matthew Butler praise, I think, one
That's
week
right.
too, for playing hard. All right, Prague Rock Ball wants to know. I like that Prague Rock. Is that like Fraggle Rock? What do we got going on there?
I think that's for progressive rock and roll music.
Is that right? Progressive rock and roll.
The kind of stuff AP listens to.
That's way over my head. That's not happening there. His question is: does JG have to just be a decent game manager to keep the starting job, or does the staff expect a significant upgrade in his performance for him to stay in? How does the quarterback battle play out if he's just okay but we're winning? If you're winning, he's going to play.
Yep, that's right.
He's going to keep on playing.
If he's playing clean football, it may not be exciting, but clean football where they're putting enough points on the board and they're winning games, he's going to. What does anybody care what it looks like? If Tennessee's getting a win, shouldn't everybody be happy? I mean, I understand people want to score 50 every week, but I think Jeremy Pruitt's going to be really content if nobody's turning it over. And you're finding ways to get W's.
I mean, I know there's been some talk about Shrout looking better, but I mean, have you guys got the impression that JT's being pushed?
No,
I haven't.
JT Shrout is the clear number 2.
Yeah, but there's a clear separation between number 1 and number 2 as well.
Yeah,
I mean, so Maurer has struggled, and Harrison Bailey, as Jeremy Pruitt said at the quarterback club on Monday. He said that some of the things, Bailey missed the first week, and he goes, and then we got all the other contact tracing where we weren't doing the 2 spot, where they weren't going basically 1s and 2s at the same time, where all 1s versus 1s or 2s versus 2s or vice versa, where they had 4 units going at one time. When they stopped being able to do that, that meant Harrison Bailey's reps got cut in half on the practice field. So he's missed a lot of opportunities and a lot of reps because of everything that they've dealt with, and the fact that he was not able to start the fall camp as well. Pine Mountain Vol wants to know, which lineman do you think is first team jumbo tight end? Jim Chaney goes jumbo. Look, I think it's either Wanye or Jameer, depending on which one starts, right?
That would be my guess.
If Wanye starts, Jameer's going to be your jumbo tight end, or do you think it's going to be somebody like Cooper Mays?
I don't think it's going to be Cooper. I don't think it's going to be Cooper early on because he's not back to practice yet. And I think Locklear was a possible candidate for that. So I don't know who it'll be. The original 2 were Cooper and Riley.
I'm going to go with Jameer if Wanye's starting. And if Wanye's not starting, I'm going to go with Wanye being that jumbo guy.
I bet we see it, though.
I think at some point you're going to see it with where they're at the tight end position for sure. Volunteered 87. I know there's a lot of unknowns for the Big Ten schedule, but by default, they'll essentially have to play up until the college football playoff starts, right? Seems like a big advantage versus the teams who have to take 5 or 6 weeks off, but can't bowl prep for a specific team because the playoff draw would not happen until after the Big Ten season. Second question. I don't know that there was a first. Oh, I don't know if there's a first question there. Second question. Did they redo the CBS ESPN contracts due to COVID, or to your knowledge, will the USC UT game in 2020 bring in roughly the same amount of TV revenue as it did in 2019? They did not rewrite the contracts for COVID. There's no additional TV money there. The $44 million or whatever it is they get from ESPN will be the same. So they did not go back and redraw any of that. Is there an advantage to the Big Ten schedule if they're going to play right up to the playoff?
I mean, on the one hand, you could say, yeah, they'll be sharp. On the other hand, you could
no
say, no, they're not going to have any way, they're not having any time, somebody's injured, that with something that would be have about 2 or 3 weeks, that guy's not going to play.
Yeah. So
also, if you're the SEC, it gives you time to get all your kids COVID at the 1st of December and have them ready to roll by January.
Or get them in a bubble because you don't have your students on campus, and get contact tracing out of the way. And so you don't have that issue going on as well. I think for basketball and football, and obviously not going out and giving everybody the virus. I'm just saying for basketball and football, when students leave, as we saw back in the summer, it's much easier to manage. Tennessee's football issues with COVID in the summertime happened in July when kids went home for the 4th of July. They didn't have an issue in June. Then their issues reoccurred in August when students came on campus. So students are leaving you Thanksgiving weekend. So then you're going to get into a bubble, so to speak, and continue. If you're in the playoff or if, get ready for the rest of your season and championship game, you should be at full strength, which is why. Go ahead.
I was just saying, if you don't think that's a big deal, drive down Cumberland Avenue Friday night about midnight and check out the lines.
It's a huge deal, and it's why non-conference basketball games are going to be able to take place in December, because basketball teams are going to be okay because they're going to be able to bubble out on their own campuses in the month of December with students leaving and the semester ending on Thanksgiving, the week of Thanksgiving. Let's go to Logan Bartlett. Believe Jeremy Pruitt has only given exact numbers once on the number of positive COVID tests that this team has had, but what's your best guess on total number of people that have had it on the team to date? And my understanding is you get 3 months no quarantine for contact tracing after that. That is true. Once you've had it, you're immune from testing for 3 months. You do not have to be tested for 3 months. Now, how long the antibody really lasts is anyone's guess, but you don't have to be tested for 3 months after you have had the virus. As for specific numbers, I don't know. I think their number in this last round of testing was very low, Austin, like a 1 or a 0 in the last round of testing, but I don't know an exact number of how many guys have had it.
I would guess around 30, since just at least that, just because he came back and said what they had 23 in July after they sent everybody home for 8 days. I think that's the last time he's gotten specific, and that might have been the first time he met with us at the start of camp.
Yeah.
All right.
I would think the number's somewhere between 30 and 40.
Okay. That's a little higher than I thought it would be, but I forgot he mentioned that number of 20-something back in
23.
July. 23.
At the start of camp.
I forgot he had mentioned that number. You're right. Also from Logan, can you talk a little bit about what goes into deciding who the lead recruiter is? How much is region versus position versus prioritizing of that recruit versus personality? When is this decided? How often are they actually reaching out to recruits, family, etc.?
Okay, so it's done by territory. So, like, everybody's got their own little territory. So, like T basically has the whole state of Tennessee outside of Chattanooga, and that's where Niedermeyer has Chattanooga. Niedermeyer has it down into Georgia along with DA. Jay has basically the whole state of North Carolina except for a small little bit, and Winky has that, and then South Carolina's Winky. It's like TID, use him as an example. The lead recruiter is Chris Winky. Who else tag teams that? Well, it's Jimmy Brumbaugh. It's Derek Ansley, but it's still Winky's show, and Winky's got a really good relationship with him. So Winky's hitting him up at this time of year. You're hitting those kids up every day, and they're talking to them. They try to talk to them as much as they can within the rules, and so that's kind of how that works.
Well, and then also if you have a situation where a kid really hits it off with a quality control guy, if he had been on campus, that quality control guy might have a greater hand and greater involvement with that particular kid. For example, Brian Niedermeyer was the guy for Henry T. But because Henry T went to De La Salle, and that's where Kevin Simon went, Kevin Simon and Henry T's family had conversations on a regular basis over the phone too. So my point is you use every resource that you have available to you. Brian Niedermeyer is why Henry T's at Tennessee, but you use every resource that you can provide, you can find that can help you. If a kid is really fun, is really a lighthearted, funny kid, maybe Jim Chaney's more involved in that particular kid's recruitment than he is in somebody else's recruitment on the offensive side of the ball. So you just kind of feel it out and play to whatever you think your strengths are with that individual. And every kid wants to be recruited differently, Rob. Some kids, it's all about X's and O's. They want to talk ball, 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 ball. Some kids aren't interested in talking ball. They want to talk about the latest music scene or this. Obviously, I wouldn't recruit very well since I didn't know what Prague was talking about there with progressive rock. But you have to alter and tailor that to every kid's personality once you get a feel for what that kid's personality is.
But the parents as well. The vast majority of these, these cases, parents are heavily involved, whether that's mama wanting to make sure he's going to be taken care of, get a good education, whether that's daddy wanting to know exactly how he's going to be used, what your plan is, what the depth chart is. And, you quickly get a feel for for all of that if you're successful at this level as a recruiter.
Yep, absolutely. iHeart Vols wants to know, now that the Big Ten has decided to play, which national sports writer would you most likely to go tell bite it?
Oh, there's several.
How is it anybody but Wolken?
Just tee me up here. Wolken, 40, Stuart Mandel, Christine Brennan, Nicole Auerbach, who had been really Johnny Fair until like 3 weeks ago, and then all of a sudden, did like a flip the switch and was, totally against playing. And listen, it's not like I think that this is some kind of hoax and stuff. Like, I think so much of this is like you're on one side or you're on the other. No, I'm just on the side of common sense. Need to be careful. I get all the 25% attendance and all that stuff. But I mean, like the whole notion that the SEC and Big 12 and ACC were condemned by these class of clowns back in early July for not nixing the season when they all just played the long game. Now all of a sudden, credit to the Big 12 or Big 10 for taking their time, and shut up. I mean, get out of here with that.
The Brennan piece today is,
him
it's
saying
the
that it's
cherry
worse
on
than
the
Jerry
sundae.
Sandusky. Get out of here, lady.
With the Michigan State child molester.
Yeah, she needs to be fired. I'm going to go ahead and call for that.
Urban Meyer covering up, having a domestic, a wife beater on his staff.
Wife beater, molesting children or young girls, molesting young boys, and you want to compare sending some kids out after they're tested every day to that? Good grief.
Unbelievable.
What about tone deaf?
All right, iHeart, you got your answer to that one. Let's go to Panic Ball as we go out the door here with our final question. How's the
notice Cubs was silent all that.
I don't know. I don't disagree with you. I was letting you scream, get off my lawn. All right? You took care of all that one for me. I mean, listen, you told everybody just now to get off your lawn, and you gave the Heisman Trophy to D. Beckwith in this podcast. So
no, I didn't.
You're Rip Ward.
That's such a.
He's Derrick Henry. No, he's not Derrick Henry. He's 3 days in. He reminds me of Derrick Henry.
I never said he was Derrick Henry. Why are you lying?
I know you did. You're very clear. You're very much clarified that you're just saying physically, his size,
he's tall,
his build.
Yes.
Yeah,
hey, by the way, do you guys remember the day Derrick Henry was on campus as an unofficial visitor at practice?
Which one? He was there about 7 times.
It was like the start of fall camp. I just bring it up by saying that's probably the most impressive kid I've seen just from a physical standpoint.
Yeah.
That has rolled through here.
And then he went to get a regular Gatorade out of the Gatorade cooler on campus, and they said, we only have orange here because Derek Dooley only allows us to have orange Gatorade. And he said, okay, I'm not coming here.
He didn't come there. That's not why he didn't come to Tennessee.
Yeah, I think there was a little more to it than that.
All right, last question. Panic Ball, sack of potatoes, how are they going to shake out in terms of starters and rotation? He's talking about the defensive line, and has there been any progress made there? What do you think this starting defensive line looks like, given Middleton's missed time, Aubrey Solomon's missed time? Not that we think starting means the most important thing in the world anyway, because they're going to go heavy rotation. Anybody got a thought?
I think
Rod Garland, baby. Give me prime Garland.
Would you not pencil Butler in?
Yeah, I think Butler gets
one guy that you put in with a Sharpie.
Yeah, I think he gets in there. And then after that, I think it depends on what happens this week and next with those guys. I really do.
I think they're totally just no one's locked in on the defensive line. Could be anybody.
I think Kevon Bennett's going to start. I think Matthew Butler's going to start. I don't know what the other two are going to look like, but those would be two that I would say are your most likely starters right now. Going into a week and a half out, or a little less than a week and a half out from the start of the season. So we'll see. Hey, that's going to do it for this mailbag edition of the Volquest.com podcast. But I want to tell you about our good friends at Blue Water Climate Control. Cooling down, going to change your system, going to turn it to air, going to turn it to heat, back to air, back to heat, all those things that you do. That's very hard on a HVA system. That's why you need to get that tune-up. Make sure everything's in working order. Don't just worry about the tune-up for your air conditioner this summer. Go ahead and get that tune-up for the heater in your heating unit this fall. So you need to call Blue Water Climate Control to get the latest from them, and they can come out. They're going to do the repair if you need a repair. They're going to do it the right way. They're going to do a full inspection. They'll let you know what you need. You can get that tune-up for $79.99. Give them a call today at 865-299-2290, or you can visit them online at bluewaterclimatecontrol.com. Learn all about Jeremy and his staff there. Plus, you can book an appointment online through that website. You can check them out on Twitter at BlueH2O_climate. That's our good friends at Blue Water Climate Control. For Austin Price, get off my lawn. Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.